Hey. Welcome back, Mere Mortals, to another edition of the Mere Mortals Meanderings. We are outside. It's philosophy. It is philosophizing in the park. Deep conversations with light-hearted touch. You got Juan on this corner.
Karen here on this side.
Yeah, look, Meandering is a chance for us to once again communicate whatever's on our mind back to you, Mere Mortalites, in the way that we do best, through video format, audio format, and everything in between. That's pretty much the only two. I have one topic that I actually wrote down for today, although it's a pretty broad topic, so I wanted to see where we landed with it, because it's probably going to spawn a few more conversations. But it actually comes from the Ego is the Enemy book that I'm now reading from Ryan Holiday. And I'm first of all, I'll just put it out there, I'm enjoying it even way more than I liked Obstacle is the Way, which I actually did end up enjoying Obstacle is the Way quite a bit. And Ego is the Enemy is fantastic. Like, it's really, really good. So that's probably a little bit tidbit on what the book review is going to end up being. But there was a chapter that I'm reading right now that's called, or I just read, To Be or To Do. And there's a little story of an unknown general who I don't even know his name, and basically he's not really like a known person. But whether this story is absolutely 100% true or not, I guess the underlying basis of it I thought was pretty interesting. And it was that he'd pull in lieutenants, and he'd pull like younger people in the army, and he'd basically give them a little speech. And it was in essence of, if you want to be somebody, that is, be known, get the right jobs, be adored, do the things that we all deem as the generality of success, you should be aimed to be somebody. Or you can choose another path, which is to do something, which is
to do somebody.
To do something.
No, to do somebody.
To do somebody.
Fuck your way to the
That's
top.
the other one. So you can do something, to actually attempt to accomplish something, but you might not get the job. You won't be known as like this particular person who was the president or the CEO or something like that. No, you chose to do something almost as if in the shadows. Now, like in my mind, I was like, well, you could have become somebody by doing something, but that's kind of like the option that he was giving in this particular speech. And it goes to point that this guy who was telling this conversation chose to do something, as to do a lot of things and become like an unknown in history. If you look at like who was this person, well, perhaps you wouldn't say like, oh, he didn't really accomplish much or was somebody, but he definitely did a lot of things which helped out a lot of people. And anyways, it sort of like tailors it out to be, is it to be? Should you be trying to be somebody, or should you try to do something? And so which sort of path you would take. So my first question I was going to ask you was, if you had to choose between the two, would you choose easy to do?
Yeah,
Why
easy.
so easy?
I think the terminology just from that sounds really vague on to be somebody. It's kind of, I don't like it. I don't know what it is about it that I don't like, but it kind of sounds like, I guess like the modern day equivalent would be like, I want to be the next blah, 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 insert your favorite celebrity.
Yep.
And
well, the terminology that Ryan used was to be the mostest with the firstest.
Okay.
The mostest with the first. Something like that. I want to be the first person to do this. I want to be the one who's going to be the best X.
You know what? I think it is that you're looking for validation. That's kind of what it screams out to me.
Yep.
It's like, I need people to... Because you can't be somebody without there being other somebodies to recognise that.
And so what got me thinking about this was, generally, I was trying to apply it to my life. So I went, okay, I can see examples in my past where I would have definitely have gone with the mindset of, I want to be somebody. In the sense of, or I want to be promoted. I want to be a manager. I want to be looking after these people. It's definitely to be. It wasn't like the secondary action of, okay, I want to do a really great job and look after people, and then that will entail that you might get promoted. But the key focus is on the doing, on the action. But I wanted to ask you, so you said that, where you don't think the 2B is really at all. But I know that you've called out on the podcast before that you want to be the top, one of the top handstanders in Australia, or something like that, right? To that effect. Do you still see that as a to-be statement, or is that a to-do statement?
No, because you can't. Well, I mean, you can get the persona of being the best handstander in Australia without actually being the best. You can be, you can use some Photoshop. You can be a really great marketer of yourself, so there'll be other people who will perhaps get more recognition. The best person at handstands in the world might not have social media.
Might not be known. That's true.
Yeah. So, or if they are known, they're kind of a little bit lower down. Maybe they're not, the names that most people, when you think of hand balances, which is, This is very specific. You know, it's not like you're like, oh fuck yeah, Mikhail Christensen versus Ulrich on hands or whatever. It's like no, that's very specific. But you can somewhat kind of fake it, I guess, in a way. You can be the best or be the top without doing the work, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess my other question was here, just to like float the idea, is it too much of a delineation? Like, can you actually say, oh, you have to do or you have to be? Like,
no, it's one of those false dichotomies where it's one versus the other, whereas, as in most things, it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, and I guess there's often, I haven't done the book review yet, but kind of goes to the heart of a lot of the things that Ryan, and I think a lot of people put down a lot of these self-help books, where it's very extreme, it's very one way. It's either that or it's this. And sometimes they put both of the views, of the opposing views, in the one book. But they sometimes don't do the great task of sort of saying that, there's a choice, there's to be and there's to do, but you can also kind of have both in hand. You can also choose to do and also be okay, or be also following to be as well. So that kind of gets me back to the idea of, okay, well, you can focus on the to do of, okay, to be the best handstander, these are the things I'm going to do and focus on that, but ultimately you might become the best handstander or the top 10% or whatever else you want to denote. So I kind of went, at first glance, I was like, okay, yes, I can see that to do seems to be more important than to be, but in reality, you can have a healthy dose of both. Yeah, and that's probably
for sure.
I would almost say it's, if you have a healthy dose of both of them, it's probably even better than just choosing one. Kind of, you're probably going to be happier overall in society.
I err more on the side of there's just me, which is just, oh man, I think it's way cooler to be the kind of hidden, fascinating person, the mysterious. Like, who is that person?
Which I agree. I do agree. There's I can have a little bit of an aspect. This book's all about ego, but the aspect of being a little bit more silent, more reserved, more, as you say, the mystery underlying that is like, ooh, what do they know? What don't they know? All these things. So it's better left sort of unsaid than saying something.
So an example of this would be, for me, someone like Christopher Lee. So, you know who Christopher Lee is? Okay, you know Saruman from The Lord of the Rings.
Oh, yes.
Yes, okay, so the actor who played him
is Christopher Lee.
Gotcha. So he's a much older gentleman, I think
Still
he was...
alive?
No, I believe he died a couple of years ago.
Okay.
Can't really remember when. But he's always got there's always these kind of like mythologies of him floating around, of being like... on set, they were practicing, sword stabbing or something, and some guy was overly acting or something. He's like, I've been stabbed. And he was like, no, you're kind of doing it wrong. The sound that someone makes whilst getting stabbed is more like a sort of sucking sound or something like that. And the reason he was bringing this up was because, he stabbed someone during World War II or something like that.
Oh,
so
okay.
he was kind of like this, hidden badass. People kind of knew it. People were like, kind of scared of him because he was a badass motherfucker.
There you go.
But it's also, he wasn't being like, the Christopher Lee show, I'm gonna talk about all these straight up people like gangstered and shit like that. So it's more that kind of persona where it's, you hear these little hidden snippets of them which make you just go like, whoa,
even more
what
impressive.
the shit. Yeah.
Well, there was and I forget his name, Admiral McRaven, I believe it is. Yeah, okay. Admiral McRaven, that he just seems to be a badass. He was the guy who was in charge of the Osama bin Laden takedown, basically, and looked after SEAL 6 when they were doing all that. But I remember reading about admirals in, I can't remember, someone's book about admirals, and then it lists out all these things about Admiral McRaven and all these crazy things that he did and how he supported, and actually listened to his podcast with Jocko is pretty awesome. And then literally a little tiny snippet at the end of this couple of pages about him. He's like, oh, by the way, and he had cancer the whole way that he was battling through, and it was just such a throwaway thing, but it was okay, damn. It's just so left unsaid, just continues to do his thing, which adds a little bit of extra level to the story. I think that because it wasn't said, became even more powerful.
Yeah. So Christopher Lee died 2015, age 39.
What?
Age 93. Sorry. Actor, singer, author. Was fighting for, it just says military career for Finland in 1939, then United Kingdom 1940 and 1946. Rank flight lieutenant, etc., etc.
Yeah, wow, didn't know that.
He was knighted by the Queen for services to drama and charity, 2009, in all sorts of horror films, Frankenstein, Dracula, etc., etc.
Wow, there you go. I really haven't seen like much details of any of the actors.
He's kind of like I was on a little Vincent Price exploration last night.
I don't even know who Vincent Price is.
So I only heard of him from The Simpsons ages ago, because he was in an episode that I liked, but I never bothered to look him up. And he was also a kind of villain in the, I'm just going to say like 70s film era, something like that.
Yeah, okay.
And had a very particular way of speaking.
Right.
I'm not going to even try and attempt it, but yeah.
Do you know a movie that he was in? I have no idea who he is.
Oh, jeez. There was one, let me quickly type it in, Vincent Price. He was in, sorry for this not great podcasting stuff, things like The Keys of the Kingdom, Leave It to Heaven, Dragon Wick, The Ten Commandments, House of Wax, like all of these films you've never heard of.
Yeah, I was going to say, all of these films I have no idea.
1960s, The Mask of the Red Death. Yeah.
Look, look. So maybe there are some listeners who are like, oh yeah, I do know. I have no idea of any movie at all. So it's probably not for that reason that people are like, oh, these are unknown movies. No, it's just that I have no idea of movies.
No. I'm very much the same. I didn't recognise a single one of those that I listed off. But we're not film buffs. If you haven't gathered that by now, Mere Mortalites, you need to listen to us more.
But the only other sentence actually I want to get your thoughts on, because it's sort of related to that initial one, was Ryan at least wrote this, right? Which was, impressing people is utterly different to being truly impressive. What are your thoughts on such a sentence? Impressing people is utterly different to being truly impressive.
Ooh, utterly different. That's
utterly different.
That's pretty strong.
It's the extreme strong statement.
Once again, I kind of tend more to one way, which is, yes, I think there's that concept I've brought up before, being undeniably impressive, or you're undeniable. It's just there's no way that you can ignore whatever it is that person's doing, or that they have done, or something like that. Another person like this is the QI host, Stephen Fry. Man, his method of storytelling and the anecdotes that he's brought up over the years and jokes, like, fantastic, man. He's someone who I would be reasonably confident if you met in a room, it would just be like, I want to hang around this guy the whole night.
Yeah, seems like a jovial, fun person.
Yeah, he is just truly a master at the craft of comedy and just being an interesting person. Did he give any examples of what the difference between the utter difference between someone who is impressive?
So impressing people is utterly different to being truly impressive, and it was in the same sort of words as to be or to do. So there was you could impress people and become a president, or you could impress people and become the CEO or a senior vice president, or you could impress random people and they would be like, that's the best hand center we've ever seen, or being like truly impressive in the sense of, I don't know, you yourself are dedicating 40 years to the craft, and even if no one's looking at you, or someone like peers at you from the side, they don't even have to see you. They're like, okay, they're doing something. They're doing something repeatedly.
I'd echo the very sentiments I was saying just before. It's better for me, at least. I think it's better to do the just being impressive, not trying to impress people, or not. Yeah, fuck it. I would be pretty content if just everyone in the world died right now and it was just me. No, I'm not that extreme. But if Thanos wiped out half the Earth, it's sad. Yeah, okay. Like, do you think some of my friends might be gone?
Let's say if you were taken to like you say, a cave out in the middle of nowhere, you would continue to do just as much handstand practice, or even more.
Dude, yeah. As long as I had some sort of nutrients coming in, some sort of things sorted in that regard, so I'm not fighting for survival.
It would be like
there's not a whole lot that's really changing.
Yeah. Gotcha.
And these views are kind of reflected in the people who I hang around with for the most part, I would say. you're probably the exception, to be honest, because my dad, my brother to a certain extent, and definitely the handstand people I hang around with, they're all very much in the terms of doing something rather than showing, and also even like the monetary kind of like, it's okay, I don't need particularly people. I'm fine just doing my thing, that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
so,
gotcha.
Yeah, that's kind of
how do you think it would transition for you if you've ever thought about it? Let's say if you were to get married or have a kid, if you still want to have a kid, do you think that your mindset of handstanding or a few other ways of you like go through life would change? Like, okay, now I'm happy not to do that anymore.
You know, it's funny you bring this up. So when we were at the casino the other night, you know, the family getting out and together, whatnot, had a couple of drinks and definitely on the way home I was like, you know, a little bit buzzed. And even though my brother was in the car, I was like, hey Dad, what do you think the chances are that Prentice will have created a business by the time he's 30?
Yeah.
Or you know, or that he will have done X sort of thing before he's 30? Which is kind of funny because it was, you know, he was in the very car there. It was almost like I was completely ignoring him. And so then I think this like might have slightly ticked him off, but it was also funny. And so he counted back was, oh Dad, what do you think the chances are Kyron will be like married or have a kid before 40? And my dad said 0%.
Yep.
Which kind of shocked me a little bit. I would have
said the same.
Yeah.
I was at 0%.
And see, this is kind of the difference in my mind, which is, no, I definitely plan on having kids and you know, finding a wife and things like that. And, you know, if I imagine 10 years into the future, I would have said, yeah, I'd probably be at that point by then. But this is where, you know, well, you just said that. My dad said that. If you look at my kind of track record, it hasn't been like, oh, steady relationship that's getting closer to those sorts of things. It's like, no, I've had some relationships, but for multiple reasons, many of them haven't worked out. And it's definitely the lifestyle and the way I continue to live is more getting away from that traditional life path that I think most people would follow, which is, you know, go through high school, get a job, find a girl, you know, settle down,
buy a house.
Do this, Yeah, I'm, you know, that's definitely not the path I'm going down. And so I'm wondering, am I kind of like deluding myself? Like, am I actually? I'm reasonably certain, you know, that I'm monogamous and that I want to have kids. I'm reasonably certain of that. But you are correct in that, you know, do I see that happening in 2 or 3 years' time? Probably
Maybe
not.
I guess that the thing that strikes me, and I'm just trying to think of another one that's not, say, having a baby or something like that, or having a child, is there other things in life that are unavoidable should you choose to do them, that you have to take a particular path that many people have already trodden? So what I mean by that is, you can choose to not buy a house. Like, there's choices. If you can rent, you can rent. If you can do whatever, sure, that's availability. But I guess having a kid, there is no choice for you. Like, oh, like I'm gonna do something different here, where I'll be able to go and just continue. It's like, no, you will not.
Yeah,
but is there other things in life that are similar? I'm just trying to pull up some, because I guess, I don't know why. Did you ask your dad why he says 0%? So I guess in my mind,
I definitely need to ask.
My thought process would be like, okay, you've established your way of doing. Like, if I was to say, so it's not, you're not to being something, you're doing. That's like what you've now established as what it is to your life. The change to being in a relationship with a child would be almost diametrically like to the opposite side, with a lot of ways, with like a ton of ways. So it's kind of go, is there other things in life that you think might creep up that like maybe we're deluding ourselves to? So in a similar way, you know, I'm sure I'm going to delude myself in the way of, oh, I can continue to gym, you know, 2 hours a day in the mornings or whatever.
I think that's one we both have.
No, you cannot. That's what I'll be.
The inevitability of our bodies breaking down is, you know, I don't particularly want to contemplate it.
But it's going to happen, yeah.
You know, there is somewhat in my mind with the amount of time I spend doing handstands, which for anyone who's not new is roughly 4 to 5 hours a day of some sort of related thing to that, whether it be stretching
but
or
go beyond it, like
whatnot.
say for yourself, and like each person can have their own thing. So like insert here your things, but for you it'd be like when you include language learning, handstands, stretching, and doing some of the podcast work. Let's just say that would be
Well, that's my whole day.
It's like 10 hours a day or more, right? Like 12 hours a day. And let's even take away the podcasting stuff. Like, let's just imagine for people that's just work. But it'd be language learning and the handstand work. Let's say 6 hours of the day, just there in that sort of space. And perhaps for me, it's it's training and it's whatever,
like reading books.
Reading books, whatever it may be. Now, it's like, are we deluding ourselves to the reality of should we choose to go down that particular path? And if we go, oh yeah, I could see myself before 40 having kids and being married and all that, and it's like, oh, okay, but what's that look like in reality? And are we actually so far away that we're like, oh, okay, no, we just think it can be continued forever, but it won't be, and are we going to be okay with that?
Yeah, well, you keep using the word we. I think I'm more screwed than you are in this.
Well, I think similarly because I think of you from like a handstand perspective. I'm like, man, there's going to be a big change. But when I think of myself, I'm like, man, like just my ability to go to the gym whenever I want, and like that I always want to be there daily, and I'm moving away from that being so inflexible. But even then, it's like, okay, there's challenges there.
Yeah. Look, I think there's also maybe an aspect we're missing, which is you don't see a lot of how variable other people's lives can be. So, for example, Pete from Aussie English, I had him on not too long ago. Him and I are very similar in many ways. Number one being we look really
Very similar.
Bald head, a little bit of stubble. He grows a beard more often than I do, and he's I'm just going to say like 3 to 5 years older than me, something like that. Now, he's followed a very unconventional life path as well. He got a PhD in, I'm just going to say biology, marine biology maybe, and then said, no, I don't particularly want to do that. I'm going to, start up this podcast, Aussie English, and he's turned it into a full lifestyle. That's how he pays for him and his family. Now, he also is kind of unconventional in that, he's a stay-at-home dad a lot of the time now as well. So his wife has just gone back to work, I think more for the pleasure of it rather than actual need for money, per se. But, he follows his weird shit. He's into rare houseplants at the moment. And he spent, 10 grand on that, and he's started a new YouTube channel just for the hell of it. That's pretty kind of unconventional lifestyle. Not many people would say, oh, that's the standard family dynamic, the family structure. Still got the nuclear family, but it's definitely a different way of living. And his wife is Brazilian, moved to Australia, so got that kind of immigrant foreign factor thrown in as well. What about? I met plenty of people while traveling who, they would live out of a van, and there were some people doing that with kids as well. Yep. And there's plenty of podcasters who I listen to, probably more on the definitely not mainstream news, and a lot of them do homeschooling of their kids and things like this. There's definitely a lot of different ways. So, for me, I think it's more actually the opposite side of the equation, which is, I'm pretty comfortable in what I'm doing, and I could definitely see a future with a, wife and kid being able to meld into, I can be a kind of stay-at-home dad and do the podcast. That's definitely doable. The main thing is like, fuck, man, am I going to find a girl who's, going to be down with this kind of lifestyle? I think I'm sure there are, and I'm sure there are. I'm sure there's going to be people like that. That's probably the main the main thing. That's if I had to ask my dad, he'd probably be like, yeah, I'm just not sure I'm going to find a girl who's comfortable. And you're many people have commented on our backyard, for example. It is fucking, the weeds are yay high. That you get lost in that.
Like a meter high, for sure.
There's cats.
Your kid would go missing in there.
Yeah, there's cats who roam around there. There's a bloody sofa in the middle of it, surrounded by three to five chairs. Our electricity, hot water was fucking up the other day because a plant had grown into it and was short. That's not going to fly with a lot of, I'm just going to say, potential girlfriends, and that might be a look, for some people, maybe it's
maybe
it's an attraction. Oh, look at this guy. Look at this guy.
I mean,
like,
I guess
he
the challenge
cares about
the
letting
challenge would
nature
be
run wild.
the challenge I guess would be is for that, or if it's like another like a very specific type of person, how you go about meeting them. Where do you go about meeting them?
Yeah,
like for yourself, I guess I think you're slowly moving into next year's goals, probably into approaching and doing that a little bit more.
Maybe it should be approaches in the bush or something.
Yeah,
like that.
maybe like caravan parks or something like that. Karen's watch out for your local caravan park. You're gonna see Karen knocking on doors.
Or, no. So what I'll do is like I'll go up into a tree or something, right? And I'll just be hanging from the top of a tree, and I'll just start catcalling from out there because they're not going to expect it from out there.
Yeah. And whoever comes up to the tree, you'll know.
Yeah. It'll be like, hey,
one.
come up here. I need some help, or something like that.
And the ones who come up, that's where you take the next
like
stage.
the so maybe most guys would be like, oh, does she have a job? Is she like not on drugs or something?
Yeah, like, no.
Will she climb up a tree with me?
That's level one. They've got to pass that stage.
Bare minimum. You need to start working in a tree climbing, girls. If you want some of this.
Yeah. All right. What else you got for us?
Yeah. Oh man, that's funny. Okay, so problem solving, and let's go talk about the doing section. So, in general, if you have a problem, is your mentality to add, change, or subtract? So what's your general approach to problem solving? So here's a couple of examples. Say you start sleeping badly. Say you're having money problems. You've got a pain in your ankle. Maybe your car smells weird. What is your default approach to solving that problem? Do you add something to the situation? So, I don't know, maybe you start taking vitamins. Do you try and eliminate things like, oh, I'm sleeping bad, maybe I need to start eliminating phone before bed.
Yep.
Maybe I need to start, etc. Or do you change something up? Or maybe I need to change my pillow instead of replace a variable rather than add something in. What do you think is your general approach?
I think my default's add.
Yeah?
I think default's add. So like some of the examples that you said there, it would be like sleeping. It would be, okay, maybe it's the need of additional vitamins, or the need for additional eggs, or additional like an air conditioner to be cooler, something like that. I could see with potentially gym, if I'm feeling tired, okay, it's like an additional, maybe I need a pre-workout, maybe I need something else. I think
like money problems. What if you
problems? I say okay, get another job, do something else.
Yeah,
so I think in general, I think it would be add. There would be like I'm sure I could think of there's some things where I would go towards the reduction or the change, but if I was to think of overall, there'll probably be more add than it would be the others. What do you reckon for you?
I'll definitely subtract, man.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely subtract. If car still starts smelling weird, be okay. Do I need to take out this? Well, literally for me, in my old car, I had water pooling in my trunk. So then in that case, it's kind of like, maybe I need to subtract that water somehow.
And there's particular things for me, like the car thing, I would do subtraction. I wouldn't be adding. Like I'm not a person who's going to buy something to cover the odor for it.
But maybe it would be for you. I'll add a prevention device to stop the water coming in, something like that. Whereas for me, it would be like, oh, let's try subtracting and taking it out.
Yep.
My brother's very much along the same side, and why I brought this up was he was saying something, and his immediate reaction was, yes, I'm thinking of getting some pills or looking up something to solve this problem. And I just went, whoa, that almost seemed excessive to me. It's like, whoa, you're going to do that? Like, why wouldn't you do etc. First? And yeah, I just thought that was a complete...
I think it's good to point out that both, all three of them, add, subtract, or change, all of them can have the outcome that you want. Let's just take, for instance, sleeping. You could say, oh, if I take some melatonin or some ZMA or insert whatever, then you're going to sleep better. You're adding. Subtracting, you're taking away watching TV for an hour. Or changing, you're changing your pillow. All of them can end with the same outcome, is that you're sleeping better, or you're sleeping X amount of hours and X amount of REM sleep and X amount of deep sleep. So all of them can get you there, but there's obviously different methodologies to do it. So what you're saying, your brother on general is probably like an addition as well?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay,
yeah.
Gotcha.
My dad, I believe, was more of a subtractive type of person. Okay, second question, what do you think the general population split
I was
is
going to say
between all
add.
of these.
I was going to say in general,
Yeah.
probably there'd be more add than there would be subtract.
Yeah.
And I think I would say the reason for that is that most people do struggle with taking away things that are already part of their everyday life. So, if you said to somebody, hey, you're gaining all these weight, I think in the general population, to say, oh, just stop eating sugar, or add half an hour of more walking, you're probably going to find add half an hour walking, add this fat burning pill, as opposed to take away eating the sugar.
Yeah,
now, there are some differences there, but I think the reason being, coming back to positive and negative, is that to take away is a more, if you had like units of pain or units of effort or activity or energy or whatever it may be, I think taking away can feel more, as from a perceptive perspective, than adding. So for me, if you say, oh, you have to take away, say I was having trouble sleeping, it's like, oh, no, you can either take away 1 hour of watching TV, or you can add having vitamins. Well, adding feels like less of a pain than taking away the TV aspect, where maybe a reductionist view, so maybe for your dad and you don't associate that taking away as it being more painful than the addition. In fact, for you guys, you're like, perhaps being like, oh, well, getting vitamins, that cost me money, or that cost me, like, whatever the cost is more painful than just taking away something else.
Yeah, which I think probably is reflective of much of the world in sense of advertising, for example. That's that's huge everywhere, and that is an additive thing. There's not many services showing hey, this is how we're gonna take away that, because it's like, oh, well, I'll just take it away myself. I don't need your service to.
Well, how often do you see apparel or clothing or the like sells you something like, hey, buy this shirt and you'll never have to buy a shirt over again because it's so long lasting, and that it'll never.
Yeah.
You'll never get that.
Yeah.
For the majority, this comes with phones as well. They're built to actually fall apart and not work after a couple of years. Why? So you can go get another one, right? That's just when it comes to capitalism. You want to keep going with the business. Cool, that's what's going to happen. You don't see the other way where it's reducing it away. They're not building thing so that it's a forever thing. No, it doesn't really occur.
Which was funny, because I was thinking then, okay, does that make my kind of worldview then almost zero-sum game? It's kind of, it's better to subtract, take away. So I wouldn't have particularly said so. Like I do see you can add value to things, but yeah, no, it's just random tangent I'm going down. But yeah.
I just say on average, I think most people would be on the add or change than reduction.
Yeah, I would definitely need to. I can't say I know anyone who's a kind of change person. That's their immediate instinct, and maybe that was just a category that doesn't even exist. There is really only add or subtract type of people.
Maybe.
Unless you find, I don't know, maybe like a real revolutionary activist type person is like, we want change, and so all they care about is
just a change.
is changing things,
not adding
replacing
or subtracting. Maybe.
Yeah. The last comment I had here was, even though I was slightly moaning last week about leaving the gym, god damn, is it good to leave the gym at the same time. My first session back outdoors, in kind of the mentality of, okay, I'm only going to be outdoors again now, it was just incredible, man. Just perfect weather. I made friends with. I got the Facebook friend of an Iranian girl who was there, and then also of a Spaniard and Argentinian girls who were there. And
cool.
I spoke with them in Spanish for 20 minutes, about like random stuff, lunfardo dialects from Spain, and yeah, it was just like, damn, this is so much.
It was good, yeah.
So I didn't meet any Iranians, Argentinian, or Spanish girls in the gym.
In the gym, no.
That's all I can say. And not to say the gym doesn't have its benefits. There was a bird that got trapped in there on my very last day, and it was flying around like a pigeon, which was pretty humorous, just to seeing the staff being so flustered
with the pigeon
and
inside.
being like, how do we get this bird? But yeah, I don't know. It's just outdoors is where it's at, man.
What would have happened, you think, if it had rained the entire week?
This week?
Yeah, if it was rainy and cold.
Yeah, okay. That might have been a bit of a dampener.
Yeah. So is it the fact that it is sunny that has improved your mood of it?
It helps a lot.
Gotcha. Okay. So I guess how much of it, if you say 100%, how much of it truly was being back just outdoors?
Yeah. Okay, so you mean outdoors in the sense of
like using the bars and being out, like working out outside as opposed to a gym, like out of 100%, if you had to really be like critical about it, how much of it was, oh, I'm back out working out outside and meeting different people, and how much of it was the weather?
Yeah.
So like, you know, so if maybe an example would be like, so if it had rained the entire week and it was cold and shitty, but you still met those people, what percentage of like being back outside and meeting people and working out outdoors would have made up the 100%?
Yeah. Let's say 50-50.
Okay, 50-50.
Yeah, because the reason I went to the gym in winter because it was cold and wet.
Yeah, and I think
and windy.
Look, it's a good point because I think I never really thought about this too deeply in the sense that a lot of things that I do in my life are I'm in a gym, I'm inside. I'm working, I'm inside. I'm in a house. Sometimes I'll go out to like see the sunset. Maybe sometimes I'll go to the beach, but it's not always on my mind of what the weather is. But I have noticed more and more as I get older of just being outside, doing the podcast outside, that I couldn't imagine myself moving to a place like the UK where it might always be raining or always be cloudy. And I don't think I had that appreciation when I was younger, but more and more now, I guess I see it. I'm like, wow, I definitely enjoy it. And I would pick a place for some of its weather, for some of its sunniness, for the amount of sunlight that you get throughout the year, way more. Like I would put that much more value. So yeah, in the past, I would have said, for me, like maybe I almost wouldn't have cared. Like if it's raining, who cares? I might go to the beach 4 times a year. Where now I might be like, no, well, I want to be outside at least once a day. And on the weekends, I want to be out in the sun and going for a bit of a walk. And so it's much more valuable now to me than it is, you know, probably in the past. So I guess that's what my question was. I was wondering for you if it was 50, or if it was like 80% of it being like good weather.
Yeah. I mean, they kind of go hand in hand. You know, it's hard to
separate them.
Yeah, because I can work out outdoors when it's wet and rainy, and there are sometimes fun. It can be fun where it's just absolutely pouring down. It's like, fuck it, I'm just gonna
do it anyway.
Anyway. Feel like a savage.
Yep.
Or I can go to the undercover area here in South Bank, and there might be some people who are also crowding in there to kind of escape from the rain, and
which makes it like you get to, like meet people as well in that way. Yep.
Yeah. So it is. The weather plays pretty big part though, for sure. And when it's beautiful days like this, it's hard to
go past it. Yeah. Well, it makes you not want to be indoors. You're like, I want to be outside with such a good weather.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing. I think my general mentality is, if I'm drinking with friends, I would rather be on the veranda rather than inside.
Yeah.
If I was, going out to dinner somewhere, I think I'd prefer to be out in the open
than inside.
That's
similar as well. Similar as well, to be honest. I mean, it would take. I mean, sure, I'm sure there's people, but I think again, if you want to go with the generality of humans, I'd say most people would enjoy it for it to be nicer weather and be outside than probably be inside. Yeah. Although there are probably a few people like a hardcore gamer might be like, no, I enjoy the darkness and the dampness of the inside.
My brother's like that.
So there are people like that, but I would say in the general, probably everyone's like that. So
for sure.
Good.
That's it, man.
We'll probably leave it at that for the meandering session, folks. Again, Mere Mortalites, if you want to support us, we haven't talked about it too much in a little while, but we are a podcasting 2.0 value for value enabled podcast. So
that's it.
Go over to Fountain app. Feel free to get used to the new applications, sharing through some Satoshis as well.
So
Instagram.
There are others as well. Podverse is adding some new features and.
I still think Fountain sounds like it's still way ahead of the game, though, in terms of
it's still the easiest for someone new coming in and whatnot, but there's going to be some features. So Podverse, for example, can now, it does. I don't believe it has streaming per minute set up, but the wallet that you have on there is an integrated wallet that can also be used on your kind of Google Chrome browser. So you can also use that for other kind of applications as well.
Gotcha.
And it's maybe a bit more.
So it connects via mobile as well, so you can use it with the mobile?
I believe so. Okay. I need to test it out myself, but I just haven't got around to it. So too many things to do. But there are. Yeah, we say Fountain a lot, but there are others.
There are others, for sure. And look, if you go to our website as well, you'll find that we actually have links there for other platforms if you actually want to go. So Curiocaster and a few others. So feel free to.
Breeze, they were mentioning just the other day, has got some new setups and whatnot, and I haven't actually tested that out yet. So
look, there are more, but if you are a new joiner, I still would recommend Fountain as being probably the best way to actually introduce you and join you. And for those who are long-time Mere Mortals support as well. We also thank you. So make sure you send through a Boostgram and let us know of any thoughts that you had from our conversation today.
Mm-hmm.
For now, we're going to tie up the meandering session. Folks, unless you got anything else you wanted to add there?
No. I think, we put a tremendous amount of effort, energy into this podcast, so we appreciate the value coming back whatever way you do it. I've seen people clipping us on Fountain. That's a great way to do it. Another way to be sharing it with a friend. And then, of course, the monetary support, which we do very much appreciate and always read out in our musing sessions.
Absolutely. And for those people who are creating clips as well, they're getting themselves Satoshis as well. That comes into them. So
I always boost them a bunch back.
Yeah, so it's always good to see. So now, Immortalites, thank you very much for joining. That's it. One out.
Current out.